Good evening, Young Kings. Time for your more motivation this afternoon. It's a Wednesday, and just coming to the tail end. Got 2 more days of this course. So at the tail end of this pre-command course, going through it, navigating through it, and thought it would be good for me to jump on today. As I was reflecting today in class about how much information has been presented and that I've taken in, I'm a better person having attended this class, and it made me start to think because there's not a lot of melanated commanders here. I'm one of few, and I'm honored to be among those few. But I was reflecting on the information that's presented in this class, and I just thought like, man, a lot of this information I wish I had a lot earlier in my career, and started to understand like the how essential it is to get new information in your head and to constantly be learning and growing from that new information. It's not just enough to have it, but it's just there's an application phase of that. And it made me start to think because this has been an abundance. I mean, there's resources they're giving us, there's websites, there's pamphlets, and all this information in the schoolhouse. And I started realizing like a lot of my people don't have this information, or it has restricted access to those who are in commander spots, and not a lot of melanated people get to that commander spot. So you can be in a staff meeting at some times, and then you can be thinking like, wow, man, he's really smart. Like, how did he learn that? How did they? And a lot of times I learn a lot in staff meetings. I'm writing notes and stuff down, but I realize they have access to this information that's been presented to them, and they're just applying some stuff that they learned. So you got to have an abundance mindset when it comes to getting new information, because it's going to be the thing that could bridge your gap from where you are to where you want to be. And if you don't have that bridge, then you're stuck on the one side of ignorance, and you haven't got that information bridge to put you into intelligence. So it's very important that you get into the information era. And I'm not just talking about stuff you see posted on Facebook or Instagram. I'm talking about actually getting in and doing research and getting tools. So you need to maybe need to go back to school or go to a seminar or something, but something you got to do to enhance your mind to get you prepared for the next season in your life. And it's about an abundance mindset. And I had a few thoughts, and they're all just jumbled around in this big head of mine. So I'm just trying to get it out. And the thing that came to me is like settling is selling out. Settling for less than what you want is selling out. So don't settle. Make sure that you have an abundance mindset in every area of your life, whether it be in your professional life. It should be abundance, whether it be in your personal life. There should be about abundance. If it's about your spiritual life, there should be about abundance. I mean, everything about you should scream abundance. And I made a note when I said selling and selling out. A thought popped in my head in class. That's like, there's enough in this world for you to have everything you want if you're willing not to settle and you're willing to work for it. So don't have that scarcity mindset like, hey, I'm only can go this far, I only can do this much. Don't have a scarcity mindset. You got to have an abundance mindset, and you got to continue to tell yourself that your greater will be later. Like, the former is not the best. And I used to tell kids I mentor and young soldiers, that says if the highlight of your life is you were a star on a football team in high school and this and that, and now you 45 and you still talk about what you did in high school, you just wasted a lot of time in your life. There should be new adventures and new things that warrant your appreciation or celebrating. Don't let your best years have been in your past. Your greater is still to come. So an abundance mentality. And I was talking with my brother when I first got here. And I'm going to try to stay on time. We're going to be 25 minutes or less. I might even try to get it under that. But I was talking with my brother about an abundance mindset, not knowing that I was going to come on here and talk about this later, about getting what you want and not settling. And because I made the statement, I says, hey, I feel like a burden has been lifted off my shoulder, and I'm not about to settle for anything less than what I want now. Like, I'm all out. I mean, I won't. I don't want to go back into the confines of the restriction of to get just enough, the minimum of what it takes to survive. I don't want minimum. I don't want to work for minimum wage. I don't want a minimum relationship. I don't want minimal effort. I'm not giving minimal effort, so I don't want minimum recognition at work. I don't want a minimal blessing. I'm looking for something that's abundance. And I told him, like, the analogy I says, when you start settling, you get less for what you want. It's like sending a fat kid to the store hungry. Like, you send a fat kid to the store hungry, his stomach growling, and he looking at everything on the shelf. Everything looks good, and he wants to take a bite of this and a bite of that. But not even have to be a fat kid. Just you go to the store hungry, um, everything looks good to you. But when you eat a full course meal prior to going to the store, you're able to have restraint. You're able to walk past the bakery like, oh, it looks good, but I'm full. I got enough. And so what you got to do is you got to get full of yourself. And I'm not talking about full of shit. I mean, you actually got to have some substance, some stuff in there, but you got to be full. So then you able to walk past the bakery and the smells and walk through the frozen aisles and you seeing all the ice cream and because you didn't already got filled. So I'm asking you to get feel of what you want. And I made a note down here. It's like, because if you don't know what you want, then you're going to have to settle for what somebody's willing to give you. And the two may be oceans apart, So you got to really, and we're still on track with the operation of self-discovery because we're discovering what I want. So if you don't discover what you want, then you're going to get something that you don't want. And it made me think of when I was going through flight school. I went through SEER training, and SEER is a survival school. Um, and they drop you in the middle of the woods. And of course, they give you some classes leading up to it. They teach you how to survive in the wilderness and what plants you can eat, and then where to find food and stuff of that nature. But they drop you out there. And the only thing they gave us was a live rabbit and a chicken. And we had to kill it and skin it and do all that stuff and learn how to prepare for it. But that rabbit and the chicken wasn't enough to get us through that whole week of the course. And it was my first time killing a chicken and stuff of that nature. So, and that was an event in itself. But when you get out there that first day, I mean, I had ate a full course meal. I mean, I had pizza and everything when I went home. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm good. I'm gonna be okay. And he was okay for day one. But I tell you, by the time we got to day 5, 5 and 6, I ate lizard stew. I mean, we didn't set traps and we didn't caught lizards. We didn't dug up potatoes and we didn't. My group that I was in, we won the fire challenge. There was a fire challenge of starting a fire from nothing, and you had to get the fire above your knee. So since we won the challenge, we were able to win salt. So we won salt. We found a potato plant, and we had lizards, and we had a lizard soup. And I say that because that lizard soup, although it sounds nasty, of 5 days of not eating nothing or just chewing on figs and trees and stuff like that, and you finally caught that lizards, which you said you wouldn't eat, you find yourself putting some salt on there and then, chewing and swallowing it and getting some substance in your body. But that was out of a scarcity mindset because there was nothing else available. We had to do what was required to be sustained. So I'm saying that in this thing for self-discovery, settling is selling out. Don't settle. This is about abundance, and it's about going above and beyond to make sure that you get what you want out of life. Because if you don't, you'll be the one that ends up not getting what you want. So don't go to the store hungry, and then make sure that you have an abundance mindset. And the other day I was mentioning about the book that my girl got me about healing, love after heartbreak. And what it says in here was a good thing. It was like, what you believe about yourself and the results that you have in life thus far can both be traced back to the things you say about yourself and what you believe to be true of you. So a lot of things you may start to disqualify yourself from, like, hey, I don't want to do that, or I'm not good at this. And I think I mentioned in the video before, excuse me, it's like, don't put a period where it's supposed to be a comma. So if you're currently not good at something, say, I'm not good at that yet, but I need to learn. Excuse me. So make sure that you don't put it, like I said, put a period where it's supposed to be a comma. And what you say about yourself, oh, I don't deserve that, or don't listen to what other people say about you, because what other people say about you can have you operating less than your potential. They'll try to discourage you, and they won't be the ones that's really supportive and encouraging you to be better. So just, I know it's a long intro and we're going to get into some of these questions, but just know there's enough in this world. This is not a scarcity mindset. And if you don't settle and you're willing to work for what you want, then continue to strive, and you won't get it all at once. This is not a fly by night thing. I wish I had this course many years ago. It probably would have saved me a lot of heartaches and stuff of trying to learn. And the thing about being a melanated king is like, sometimes you got to unlearn some stuff and then relearn the right way. So don't be painting yourself into a corner like, well, this is the way I've always done it, so this is the way I'm going to make it. Don't be restrictive in that. So before we get into the questions, I was going through the scripture, and it got to Ephesians chapter 3:20, and I'm just going to read it. It says, now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we're able to think, ask, or imagine, according to the power that works in us. And I kind of stumbled on that. But I'm going to say again, 3:20. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask, to think, or imagine, to the power that works in us. It's like, imagine if you could think it, you could imagine it. God is able. I mean, and you got to realize you've been fashioned after the Most High. Like he had you on that wheel, and he put situations and circumstances in your life that, although it may not feel good, he was shaving off some things, and he was scoping you to be ready and equipped for what it is that you really want and desire, that desire that's in your heart. So if you able to think it, you're able to imagine it, God is able. He's able. And it's not just enough to recognize like God is able, but realize that the God in you, that you are able if you don't settle. Because settling is selling out. And if you sell out, then you're only going to have yourself to blame and be like, hey, I wish I would have done that. And one of the things that I noticed about being in the military, people will see me in my uniform at a gas station or at a particular area, and it'd be an old head or somebody to come up to me. It's like, hey, I served, I got out in 85, and I wish I would have stayed in because I would have retired and I would have had this. And they would say, I wish I would have done this. Now they have the pain of regret because they made decisions in that moment based off what they thought was going to be beneficial to them, but they didn't have their end state in mind. And that's the other thing. It's like, if you don't understand or know where you want to go, you don't know if you're on the right road or track or not, because you're just walking aimlessly. Now, if you know that, hey, you want to be in abundance, and you know that abundance is not coming from a minimum wage job. So you got to increase your skill. You got to get some more information. You got to go to school. You got to be technically proficient in something of a passion to increase that. But even if you are at that minimum wage job, you can't have champagne taste with beer money. You got to understand, the objective to abundance is, if you don't have a little, if you only have a little, don't spend a lot. Like, you may not be able to do what everybody else is doing for this season, but understand that this season your ladder is still greater. So don't restrict yourself to your current understanding or to your current education level, to your current job. If it's not fulfilling all your needs, don't settle, because as soon as you settle, you're selling out. And who you're selling out? You're selling out yourself, and you're selling out everybody that surround you, that's connected to you. because when you dream big, it gives other people permission to dream big as well. Because whether you think it or not, the people that are connected to you, they think they're better than you. You know, they see you doing something. Oh, if he can do that, I can do that too. And it's not a competition, but at the same time, people are comparing themselves to you. Some of you on this video probably comparing yourself to me, say I wouldn't do it if I was him or this or that. And I've heard those statements, but regardless, it doesn't matter. Your life is your life, and you got to make sure if it's not enough for you right now, don't settle for what you're experiencing today. You got to continue to strive and grow to get better. So I think that is a good transition because we're talking about self-discovery at work. And like I said, if you're not in school full time, even if you are in school full time, you still should be sharpening the tool and going and get some work experience because it's a it's, it's a duality to it. In order for you to really be successful, um, unless you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to be creative and you're going to invent something, whether it be a product or service or something of that nature, and it's filling a niche. If you're not doing that, then you're going to need these two things. You're going to need experience and you're going to need education. And I'm not saying it has to be a formal education where you go get a bachelor's degree. It may be a technical one where you go and learn a trade, but you're going to need experience because if you have all the experience, and then they're going to say, "Hey, yeah, you got experience, but you don't have you don't have the education in there, so we're going to start you at a little lower level." But then, if you got all the education, but then you don't have any experience, they say, "Hey, yeah, we know that you went to school, you learned this, but you don't have any practical application of that, so we want to start you at a lower level." So even if you're going to school, you still need to start getting experience, and that experience sometimes may be volunteer work. So you may have to go volunteer in the field just so you can get that experience and be working at something in that level that's in line with your education. So that's free nuggets. So let's get into this career things you should be asking yourself a part of this self-discovery from work. The next question that says, have I made mistakes at work lately? And what have I learned from them? Like, you're not going to be perfect, and don't let anybody hold you to the standard of trying to be perfect. You will make mistakes, and as I said in the video, don't let anybody utilize your mistakes and put your mistakes to make sure that so they can try to hold you down to a certain level, like, oh, see. And that's the one thing I noticed about melanated kings. They're expected to be perfect when they get in a position. Like, I used to tell other people, my life is on stage. Like, the fact that I walk into a room, everybody's looking at me, especially as a lieutenant colonel now. I was like, hey, who is he, or do this and that. And I was stationed in Liberia for 3 years at the U.S. Embassy. African Army, obviously, is in West Africa. And I remember talking with some of the colonels over there, and I was a major at the time, and we were all majors, and then they got promoted to colonel before I did. But they gave me the analogy, said, man, it must be so easy for you to be in the U.S. Army. I mean, y'all have the resources. Y'all got, one of the most powerful army in the world. Like, you so lucky. Like, you don't understand, like, what we struggle with over here. And from that perspective, his perspective, I understood what he was saying. But I had to explain to him, I says, look, I'm one of the only minorities, in leadership, one of the very few that's in leadership. Like, when I walk into the room, automatically people see the color of my skin. And whether they're prejudiced or not, I don't have any say in it. I can't hide it. This is who I am. I walk in the room, I go to do my job. And if someone has a bias just on my reflection, then I won't know, And I says, but when you walk into a staff meeting, everybody around looks just like you. And now the only thing that's going to separate you from them is your performance. So you get to be truly rated on your merits of your performance. And I understand they got some tribalism and this tribe and stuff of that nature. But the reality of it is, it's like they're surrounded by people who look like them. And I'm surrounded by people who don't look like me. So if you have a mistake, try to learn from it, try to grow from it, and then try not to repeat it. I'm not asking you to be perfect, but really get the lesson behind why did you make that mistake. And then find out who inspires me in my career. Like, is there someone out there that's doing it well and that you want to grow from, maybe you need to go out and, talk to them offline. And the thing I've learned is that arrogant people, they love compliments. And if this is a trick, you gotta play it smooth. An arrogant person loves compliments. If you go give them a compliment, they'll give you some information. You go tell them, hey, I was observing you, man. I think it's amazing how well you do that, or it's like that's great. I want to learn how to do that, and they're going to be tooting their own horn, like this is what I did, but they're giving you the keys to the kingdom. So you may have to be clandestine in how you go, be secretive behind closed doors of how you go and get that information. You give them a compliment, you shower them with compliments, and their arrogance is going to go through the roof, and they're going to want to start feeding you information. So sometimes you may have to do that. Find out who inspire you, who's excelling at that job, and then figure out what steps they're doing. Sometimes I go up there and ask people, I say, hey, how much studying are you doing each night? What reading are you doing to do this? And now I'm understanding, like, they come to these courses, they get resources and they get additional readings and stuff like that. The chief of staff on the army is putting out the reading list, suggested reading list, and they're reading through these things. And it's essential that we become lifelong learners as well. If we're going to be in abundance, you got to have abundance of information and learning, the accurate information too, and be able to have deductive reasoning to figure out what is applicable to your field. So do that. Do I feel comfortable standing up for myself at work? Like, are you in a position where you're just a widget, or you just a worker, and you just there to do it and nothing else? Or are you valued for your mind? Are you valued for your contribution? Are you valued for your work ethic? So just, are you comfortable if something was going astray? Would you speak up for yourself? That's one area I don't have an issue in. I need to learn how to not try to fight every battle. And that's kind of that emotional intelligence. And we're going to get into some emotional intelligence. Do I feel seen and heard at work? And that's kind of like that, like you being recognized. Like, when's the last time you've been promoted? When's the last time you received an award at work? When is the last time someone came and gave you a compliment and said they like how you did this? Now, they may not be doing it because maybe you're not doing anything that's worthy of it, or maybe they're not doing it because you're doing it in silence and you're not advocating for yourself for the next promotion, for the next advancement, and they don't see you. You're just invisible. The worst thing you can be in an organization is be invisible. You want to make your worth known, and if it's something because of prejudice or something like discrimination of that nature, as I've mentioned in previous videos before, it's like I got a chance to meet Lieutenant Colonel Carter, which was one of the original Tuskegee Airmen when I was at flight school. And he says the only defense against ignorance is excellence. So if you become excellent at what you do, I'm not asking for perfection, but if you become excellent at what you do, they don't have any right but to acknowledge that. They don't just like, hey, you the best at this. You show up to work early and you're doing the job exceedingly abundantly above. And guess what? If you do exceedingly abundantly above, eventually your paycheck is going to start to increase and be exceedingly abundantly above. But if you do it in the bare minimum, you can't do the minimum and then be expecting the maximum. So are you seen and heard at work? And the next question is, what are some skills that I need to improve on? Like, going through courses like this, I recognize, like, me as a senior leader, my emotional intelligence, I can't tell everybody off. I can't give everybody a piece of my mind, because then I'm not going to have a piece remaining, nor no peace, from doing that. So everything will be in pieces. So sometimes you got to figure out that is an area that I definitely need to improve on, my emotional intelligence. So assess where you need to grow at and where you need to improve at, and then put a plan in place to do that. Maybe you need to start reading some books on that. Maybe you need to start attending a seminar. You got to invest in you, because if you're not investing in you, then no one else will. So it's coming up on 25 minutes. But remember, if you're settling, then you're selling out. Don't sell yourself short. Don't sell out. Go hard and accomplish everything that you need to accomplish to be in abundance. Because I says in closing, like, there's enough in this world for you to get what you want if you don't settle and you're willing to work hard for it. Because if you settle, If you don't know what you want, then you're going to have to settle for what somebody gives you. Be well, young kings.